All right, you can keep refreshing your screen because we have no word on Juan Soto yet.
You are Locked On MLB, your daily MLB podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, baseball fans, and welcome to Locked On MLB, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. This is the daily podcast. We talk about all of Major League Baseball. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully. This episode is brought to you by our good friends over at FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Just visit FanDuel.com to get started. Follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter or whatever it's called now. And on Instagram, I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball on Blue Sky, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. Hey, Daniel Barry Sports. I see a couple people are in the live. Let me know if this sound is coming through. I'm using a brand new microphone, and I don't know how it's working so far. So let me know. Let me know if it sounds like anyone who's in the live feed. Let me know if I sound like I'm underwater because I'm using a brand new microphone and I want to see if it's working. Let me know if it sounds all right. Hey, I actually took a couple of days off. You had 5 brand new episodes last week, so I didn't leave you out in the lurch, but I took a few days to take care of some stuff in my job and my work, and I recorded a few evergreens. And I said it to myself that if Juan Soto signed, then I would do an emergency podcast. Well, there we go. Nothing so far. We did get some big news, a couple of big signings. The biggest signing so far in terms of years and in terms of, well, direction of the team, Buster Posey is not waiting around. Buster Posey, I'm always a little wary when a star takes over the team as a general manager. It always sounds cool, but then, sometimes it's a lot of bluster. But Buster Posey's not waiting around. He does not want to sit around and have the Giants, who have appeared in one postseason series since 2016. And Posey was, the new, what the heck is his new title? Is he general manager? He's president? I don't really care. He's in charge of stuff. Willy Adames has left Milwaukee and has joined San Francisco in a 7-year deal. And Adames is still pretty young. He's only 29 years old. You're going to get at least 2 or 3 prime years out of him. He has good power, obviously, good for 25 to 30 home runs a year, has decent speed, stole 21 bases last year, and is, was a good infielder. And with that, the Giants have a great defensive combination on the left side of the infield. Not a good, but an absolute great. And with Matt Chapman and Willy Adames at third base and at shortstop. Matt Chapman had a fine year offensively and an outstanding year defensively. And Adames, if a ground ball to the left side of the infield is not going to get through. Now, what that also means is they have Tyler Fitzgerald. Remember Tyler Fitzgerald? Tyler Fitzgerald wound up in very limited play in 15, hit 15 home runs and less than 350 plate appearances. He's only 20, he's only 26, but it's amazing. He's not that much younger than Willy Adames. But the thing about Fitzgerald is that he is a good player, but not a defensive player like Adames. Well, what that now means is one of two things. They will either use him as a super sub where he could play second base, fill in for Chapman or Adames, play the outfield if need be, or maybe he's a trade chip. I would use him as a super sub because there you go. But the Giants have been chomping at the bit for a big free agent signing, and this is the second time where they've signed not the big sexiest free agent, but at least one who is going to be effective on the team and will help the club as they're trying to. We all know they're not going to be better than Los Angeles. We all know they're not going to be better than San Diego. But they could be a wild card team because, granted, they just lost Blake Snell, but they can try to, they can, the Giants are always going to be an attractive landing spot for a pitcher, especially for a pitcher who's trying to recreate themselves. One looking for, a new perch, because San Francisco is a very good pitcher's ballpark, and historically, pitchers who needed a little bit of a boost uh, will come to San Francisco. So I bet they will find a way to replace Blake Snell. They have, Ramos there, Matos there. Um, Jung Hoon Lee is still there. Yastrzemski is going to be still there. And they have Marco Luciano, who I saw make his debut a couple of years ago. And he is, was their top prospect in their infield uh, just uh, just a couple of years ago. It was a top 100 in the Baseball America prospect ranking before both the 2023 and 2024 season. Actually, the years before that too. He's had a couple of cups of coffee in the major leagues, uh, and has played well. Has played well in Sacramento and in Richmond. He's more of a defensive-minded shortstop than he is an offensive player. But I'll tell you something: a 23-year-old defensive whiz shortstop with a little bit of major league experience for a rebuilding team, a Marco Luciano would be a nice trade chip. If the Giants are going to try to rebuild their pitching staff, especially after the loss of losing Blake Snell, you still have if you have Webb, you have Kyle Harrison, you have Jordan Hicks, you have Hayden Birdsong, you have some young pitchers on the team. Doval, I don't really trust Doval. I would really rather have Walker be the closer. But there you go. Hey, Jose Perez says the whole world is waiting on Juan Soto to sign. Meanwhile, he's somewhere in Punta Cana vacationing. Hey, Jose, how's my sound right now? Does my sound okay? It's a brand new microphone. Want to make sure that it's working okay. Yeah, we'll get to Soto in a second here. But good on Buster Posey for a couple of things. The world is waiting on Juan Soto, and the Giants are like, okay, well, there's it's not going to happen here. So let's get something done. Now, I had just mentioned the Giants and God, I just said his name. Marco Luciano. And the Astros are trying to deal Ryan Presley, who clinched the World Series a couple of years ago. I don't know. Is there not that the Astros are necessarily chomping at the bit for a young shortstop, but keep an eye out, kick the tires for teams that are trading away veteran pitching, because if you're the Giants, that's what you want to have. You want to have a team that is stocked with good, solid veteran pitching and everything like that. Well, tell you what, folks, when we come back, the other team that was in the Bay Area as recently as October, actually September, I guess, made a move that, quite frankly, has me scratching my head and wondering if there is an ulterior motive. And if you're wondering why am I so cynical about it, it's because they've given us no reason not to be. Nothing delivers comfort and joy quite like the unrivaled quality and taste of Omaha Steaks. This year, skip the holiday hustle and bustle and save 50% off site wide during their cyber sale at omahasteaks.com. Get a $30 reward card when you shop early and score an extra $30 off with promo code MLB. With 5 generations of experience, Omaha Steaks consistently delivers the world's best steak experience, and their gifting experts made it easy to deliver the perfect gift with thoughtfully curated gift packages starting at $89.99. From legendary steaks to mouth-watering desserts and more, save 50% off site-wise during their cyber sale at omahasteaks.com. Plus, our listeners get an extra $30 off with promo code MLB and a $30 reward card if you shop early. That's 50% off at omahasteaks.com and get an extra $30 off with promo code MLB. Minimum purchases may apply. By the way, steaks is spelled Steaks. Omaha Steaks. Omaha Steaks. Let's move. So the A's have money. Turns out the A's have money. Turns out the Fishers have dough. Isn't that interesting? Isn't that odd that after all these years where they couldn't sign anyone, in fact, they were talking about trading Mason Miller. Should they trade Mason Miller? Hey, oh, by the way, that's our good buddy. Hey, we're over at Locked On Pirates. Yeah, you like my Sacramento A's shirt? There you go, buddy. Yeah, I'm going to talk about that for a second. The A's couldn't sign anybody. Anyone who asked for the slightest bit of money. We mentioned Matt Chapman earlier. Remember, they were putting together a really good team. I'm not talking about Vida Blue. I'm not talking about Jose Canseco. I'm not even talking about Sean Doolittle and Yoenis Cespedes. I'm talking about in 2018, 2019, and 2020 when they made the playoffs. Each one of those years that they had the Matt Chapmans and the Matt Olsons, and they were putting together a nice little team. Sean Manaea and all of them. And oh, we can't afford it. And they slash payroll and increase ticket prices. Say, I don't know why we're not getting great attendance. Always told, well, we don't have the money for it. No, don't have the money for it. They packed their bags. They head to Sacramento, kind of. You're not supposed to call them the Sacramento A's. I just got my electronic schedule to go see when I can see an A's game at Sutter Health Park, which is in West Sacramento. And they are the only team in the history of Major League Baseball that doesn't have a city attached to it. You're not supposed to call them the Sacramento A's, like my shirt says. You're supposed to just call them the A's or the Athletics. To hell with that. They're the Sacramento A's. Everyone needs to call them the Sacramento A's, because if that's where they play, that's where they play. But as Ethan at Locked On Pirates says, how can the Pirates compete with the big spending A's? Yeah, suddenly they have money. And the biggest contract they've ever sent out in their history was to Luis Severino. Luis Severino gets a 3-year deal with the A's, the Sacramento A's, which is what they are. It's odd that they've done that. And of course, Severino is a strange person to give that contract to. Now, Severino's not that old. Hey, Tim G says, hi, Sully. Nice to see you. He's only 30, but he's had his share of injury issues. Remember, when Severino was healthy, and he was pretty healthy this year and had a nice year with the Mets, and he's had about 2.5 great seasons with the Yankees and one very good season with the Mets. But remember, he missed almost all of 2019, all of 2020, almost all of 2021. Between 2019 and 2021, he pitched in 7 games total. And then he pitched 19 games in 2022 for the Yankees, pitched pretty well. Then he pitched in 2023. He appeared in 19 games and was awful. And then last year had a bounce back season with the Mets. So the greatest player, the biggest contract they ever give, was it to Mark Mulder or Tim Hudson? No. Was it to Eric Chavez? No. Was it to, hell, Matt Chapman or Olson? No, no, and did I mention no? They sent it to Luis Severino, is the biggest contract they've ever handed out in their history. And now they seem to be kicking the table, or kicking the tires, not the table, to give a contract extension to Brent Rooker, who's their star slugger, who made the All-Star team 2 years ago, should have made it this year. Now, remember, the A's got to an okay start, a 500 start, and then they had a brutal 2 months, and then pretty much from July on, they played pretty well. They had a winning record for a big stretch of the season. Now, they finished the 90-loss team, but they had those brutal 2 months where they could not win a series, but for about half the year, they were not bad. And if you had a starting rotation, if Severino stays healthy, and that's a huge if, uh, JP Sears, Joey Estes, Mitch Spence, and Luis Severino with Mason Miller closing the games out, that's not bad. That's not a bad starting rotation. And if you take a look at, if they have Lawrence Butler, who played great the second half of the season, Brent Rooker, who had a fantastic season, JJ Bleday and Shea Langoliers both have had big moments. Jacob Wilson's a top prospect. Zach Geloff has some talent. This is an A's team that, if Luis Severino stays healthy, has an outside chance at a wild card spot. And one of the great moments in the history of baseball could come around, which is the A's could make the playoffs and have to play in a minor league ballpark. I'm absolutely begging for that to happen. But Tim G says very odd when you put it that way. Hey, seriously, new mic, let me know if this is working or not. Either way, but yeah, fingers crossed for the A's. There is something about this that I feel kind of it makes me a little nauseated. I don't trust the Fishers, nor should anybody. They've shown to be liars. They've shown to be rotten people. And the fact that they're playing in Sacramento is all because of them being con artists and scam artists and everything like that. We've established that. It's interesting that now they're spending money because there's so much bad press going on about them and what happened after leaving Oakland. And now the stadium situation seems a little, it always seems weird because the price keeps going up. They keep saying, yeah, we're good for it. We'll put in the money. We're gonna put in the money. We are totally gonna, I don't understand why no one would trust us. We are totally putting in the money. I'm not going to trust they're going to put one dime in this until the money is in escrow. And there's weird wording, and say weird wording 3 times fast. There's weird wording in some of the letters and the exchanges that have been going on regarding the A's and the Las Vegas stadium, which is, of course, we pledged to pay the 1.2 billion. Of course, we're going to pay what we agreed to pay, but now it costs more. And it's like, it's being weirdly worded that makes you think, are you saying you're not going to pay for the overruns? Are you going to say, why don't you just put the money in escrow? Why don't you show that you're putting in that money? And forgive me if I don't trust the Fishers. Forgive me if I don't trust that they'll just go ahead and do it. And signing a Luis Severino creates a aura of, hey, things are different. We are money spenders. We're going to spend some dough. See, we just signed Luis Severino. What's the issue? $67 million is a lot of money, but it's a hell of a lot less money than a few billion. And I can't help but wonder if the continually rising costs of the Armadillo Dome that they're going to build in Las Vegas is starting to get some buyer's remorse from the A's. And I would not stun me if they try to put a decent product on the field and then sell it off. I've been saying forever that I think they're going to stay in Sacramento. And I think baseball will either expand to Las Vegas or that's where the Rays will land. And I can't make it any clearer. I want the Rays to stay in Central Florida. I think that the Rays can survive in Central Florida, but we'll see. But this signing of, oh, no, see, we're big spenders. Forgive me. My antenna is up and I don't trust them. And do you know what? Neither should you. Hey, let's talk about our friends over at FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Because right now, new customers can bet $5, get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So if you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the National Football League. All right. Well, we're all just we're waiting for Godot at this point. I mean, we're waiting for Soto. Soto. It'd be better if it rhymed perfectly. I mean, been other interesting acquisitions. Tyler O'Neill goes to the Orioles. Again, I don't know why the Red Sox didn't just bring him back. I thought he'd be a nice fit, but what are you going to do? And one of the weirdest signings the Orioles have been making a lot of smaller moves, but hoping that they all kind of fit together. So bringing in O'Neill and bringing in Gary Sanchez, they're just hoping they're bringing in some pop there. The fact that Clay Holmes signed with the Mets as a starting pitcher, I find that odd. I don't think that the Yankees necessarily should have brought back Clay Holmes, but maybe the Mets see something we don't. Maybe he'll make a decent starting pitcher. Maybe not. I don't know. Holmes is a pitcher who is talented. There's no getting around that he's a pitcher who's talented. He just wasn't set. He wasn't cut out for the closer job. The one that he was an all-star for in 2024. I would not have balked if the Yankees brought him back and said, "Hey, you're going to be in the setup role." He pitched fine as a setup pitcher, but the Mets see something that I don't. But hey, that's why they're paid the big money. Let's see what's going on. Wano said, "Don't you think because the teams are looking to sign Soto or letting some good players pass some good players, they could sign Teo, Bueller because they're focused on Soto." That's what I think that's a great point, Juan, and I think that's exactly what the Giants did. The Giants looked around and said, "Okay, we're not in on Soto. Let's bring Adames in." I mean, the Giants are going to have an outstanding defensive infield, which is another thing to keep in mind if they're going to try to bring in some veteran pitchers to give them the strength in their pitching staff. A ground ball is not getting through that infield. And the Giants are like, all right, we're not going to get Soto. I'm sure they kicked the tires on him. And I think Soto would be a great addition for the Giants, but I don't think they're going to outbid Toronto, neither New York teams, Boston. It wouldn't stun me if the Cubs are still in one way, shape, or another. I think I hear people say, he didn't want to play in the West Coast. He will play where the largest pile of money is. Stop that. Tim G says, supposedly the A's reached out to Walker Bueller, but he wasn't interested. Would you be? I mean, he just pitched for the World Series champion. He was the one on the mound clinching it. Now, I think the Dodgers should bring him back. I think he's a good fit with the Dodgers. I think he's going to sign with either the Chicago Cubs or the New York Yankees. That's my prediction. And maybe if the Blue Jays fall short on Soto, which I think they will, I think Soto's going to the Mets. It wouldn't stun me if the Blue Jays countered by signing 2 or 3 free agents who are not as big as Soto, but could give them depth. I think Bueller would be a nice addition. I think gun to my head, I would say, please put the gun away. I would make the prediction he's going to Chicago with the Cubs. But why would he go play in Sacramento? Why would he go to a minor league ballpark? Why would he go to that situation? I'm stunned that Severino did, but he's like, hey, I got a 3-year deal. And they know they're going to trade him in any moment. Adam Scott Bristol, who's been a follower of mine for the last quadrillion years, says, hey, we tried, is a common refrain from teams that don't like to spend money. Yeah, maybe the A's offered that big contract to Severino, expecting him to say no. And there you go. The Tim G says they need a binding contract, no best efforts, has to be spelled out in the agreement or who's responsible paying for what. This is regarding the A's and the Armadillo Dome in Las Vegas. By the way, I like the design of the Armadillo Dome. I think it looks cool. I like I like new designs. I like that it doesn't look like any other ballpark. Uh, it's 30,000 seats, so it's not going to be too intense. I I'm not a fan of Vegas as a market, but I've come to grips with the fact that baseball is hell bent to go to Las Vegas for whatever reason. So, with that in mind, there you go. But yeah, I think that they have to make it, at this point, we can't you can't trust the Fishers. They have to be treating them like people with bad credit. Put the money in the escrow account, please. Uh, Johnny T said, I wouldn't count the Giants out on Soto yet. Posey's working stealthy and not showing his cards. If you want Soto, it's very easy. Find out his highest bid and offer $1 more. It's really that easy. Hey, Birdland Sports Entertainment says, what do you think the Orioles' chances are? Burns or Fried? I'd like them to keep Burns. I think Burns was a good fit. I think Fried is going to go to either the Yankees or to the Red Sox. That's my take. But I think the Orioles have a shot with Burns. I probably would have behooved them to try to sign him to a contract extension when he was acquired from Milwaukee. But I think the Orioles, as we all saw, they were a good team, not a great team last year. There was no great team in the American League last year. But Burns was a nice fit. But they got to make sure if they lose him, because he could wind up going, it would not stun me to see Burns sign with, I predicted he was going to go to Los Angeles. Burns going to San Francisco wouldn't stun me either. But yeah, I mean, I don't think the Orioles are going to be quiet, even if they wind up losing Burns. Tubu says armadillo. I think it looks like the Sydney Opera House. I got news for you. Sydney Opera House looks like an armadillo. Crochet for Clark Smith, Ben Wright, Spencer Jones, and The Martian. Wow. That is a classic Yankee trade from the 80s. That is Uncle Ted gives us a classic Yankee trade from the 80s, which was trade a bunch of young players I've never heard of for the one player I have heard of. That's how the Yankees lost Willie McGee, how they lost Fred McGriff, how they lost Doug Drabeck, how they lost Jose Rio, all these players who were great. They desperately needed a shortstop, and Greg Gagne was winning a pair of World Series rings. Yikes. So no, I don't see that really happening. Are the new and Tim G asks, are the new owners of the Orioles going to be as cheap as the previous one? I don't think that's possible. And I think they've already shown they're being a little aggressive when they made the deal for Burns. We'll see. They have to show off to the fans that they are for real. So there you go. And Tube U says, how are your free agent predictions going? Well, there have been barely any big ones to talk about. So when the free agency period is over, we'll go over that step by step. All right. Well, if there have been no issues with the sound, then I'm going to feel good about today. And of course, if Juan Soto signs, we're going to do an emergency podcast. But thanks for listening. And keep putting in the comments section what the all-time great home runs for your favorite franchise work. I'm going to do a whole piece about that over the Christmas break. And yes, I'm going to be doing podcasts. You're going to be all throughout the next bunch of months in the off season. I'm going to be still dropping the podcast, but I got news for you. Some of them may be a tad evergreen. So follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter or whatever it's called now, and on Instagram. And you can follow me. I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball on Blue Sky, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. Waiting for Soto and being cynical about the A's as I tend to be. This has been Locked On MLB. I'm your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully.